7.5 million. That is a truly massive number. I mean, think about it. Imagine a population that's literally larger than many entire countries, but they are completely locked out of the democratic process of their own homeland. Mind-blowing, right? Well, that is exactly the reality right now for Bangladeshi expatriates living abroad. Let's just jump right into this. No remittance without representation. That's the rallying cry of the advocacy paper we're exploring today. And it perfectly sets up this glaring, central paradox that we really need to unpack. How on earth can millions of people be so absolutely vital to a nation's economy, yet remain completely politically silent?
So, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into a really comprehensive and fascinating policy paper by Dr. Khan Mohammed Alias. It's called No Remittance Without Representation, Enfranchising the Bangladeshi Diaspora. We're going to distill his research on expatriate voting rights and figure out exactly what is at stake here. Okay, let's take a quick look at our roadmap for today. We'll be hitting 1. The expatriate's dilemma. 2. The power of remittances. 3. The cost of exclusion. 4. Dr. Yunus's democratic push. 5. The online voting solution. And finally, number 6, overcoming implementation hurdles. Let's get to it.
Section 1. The expatriate dilemma. Locked out of the ballot box.
So what is the exact legal roadblock that's disenfranchising this massive diaspora? Well, the core of the problem really lies in something called the Representation of the People Order, or the RPO. You see, while Bangladesh's constitution actually guarantees universal suffrage for its citizens, the RPO legally tethers the right to vote to physical residency. Historically, this made sense. Voting was essentially tied to a local, territorial constituency. But today, if you're an expatriate, you inherently lack that physical presence. So despite keeping your citizenship and passionately supporting your homeland from afar, you are effectively legally invisible when Election Day rolls around.
And honestly, it isn't just some tiny legal loophole. It's a huge infrastructure problem. The Election Commission simply lacks the foundational systems right now to process overseas voters. For an expat who's just trying to participate, they face immense bureaucratic hurdles just to get registered. There's a total lack of identity verification mechanisms built for people living abroad and an absolute absence of absentee or proxy voting infrastructure. The system just isn't built to accommodate them at all.
Section 2. The power of remittances. The economic lifeline.
Let's shift gears for a second and look at the economic stakes. $20 billion, that's with a B. That is a staggering annual figure. According to World Bank data cited in Dr. Elias's research, Bangladesh consistently ranks among the world's top remittance recipients, pulling in over $20 billion annually. And this isn't just, extra pocket money. It's a fundamental pillar of national economic stability. It is literally the money that builds schools, supports everyday households, and crucially, props up the nation's foreign exchange reserves.
And this perfectly illustrates the crazy friction at the heart of the report. On one hand, the economic contribution of the diaspora is absolutely immense. They are a vital lifeline. They provide crucial foreign exchange, and they act as what economists call a counter-cyclical buffer, meaning when the domestic economy struggles or takes a hit, remittances from abroad often spike to help stabilize the nation. But, on the other hand, absolute political silence. They can't register, they're bureaucratically excluded, and they're legally invisible. It's this massive juxtaposition between their huge macroeconomic value and their complete lack of political agency.
Section 3. The cost of exclusion, alienation, and vulnerability.
Which brings us to a really critical warning from the researcher. What happens if these expatriates actually start to feel alienated? What are the real unintended consequences of stripping political agency from the very people keeping your economy afloat?
Well, the paper maps out a very clear, very dangerous chain reaction. Denied voting rights naturally lead to a deepening political detachment. When expats feel like they're continually ignored, their emotional ties to the homeland just begin to erode, and that emotional distancing directly threatens the broader economy, potentially leading to a sharp drop in those vital remittance flows we just talked about. This, in turn, results in weakened national foreign exchange reserves. Plus, disenfranchised workers might actually shift away from official banking channels, moving toward informal, unsecure money transfers instead. Ultimately, the paper warns that the vital, counter-cyclical economic buffer that literally saves the country during crises could just disappear entirely.
Section 4. Dr. Yunus's democratic push, a historical precedent.
To truly understand how we got here, we have to look back at the political evolution of Bangladesh. Following independence in 1971 and the restoration of parliamentary democracy in 1991, a truly pivotal moment happened in 2008. During this era, the interim government actually laid the foundational groundwork to formally recognize overseas voters.
It was a major, unprecedented shift in thinking about exactly who gets to participate in the nation's future.
And a massive key figure in that 2008 push was Nobel laureate Dr. Muhammad Yunus. He really leveraged his global stature to advocate for these institutional reforms. He made the case that enfranchising the diaspora wasn't just, a nice gesture. It was a strategic imperative for socioeconomic development and democratic justice. He heavily emphasized that integrating expatriate voices is absolutely crucial for bringing true accountability to national governance.
Section 5. The Online Voting Solution. A technological blueprint.
So how do we actually go about solving this today? The author proposes a pretty brilliant e-voting mechanism that completely bypasses the need for physical polling stations. Step 1 is setting up a dedicated pre-registration portal managed directly by the Election Commission. Step 2 involves rigorous biometric and national ID verification to stop any kind of fraud or identity theft in its tracks. And then Step 3 is the actual voting, utilizing blockchain-secured electronic voting. This specific technology is highlighted because it ensures the absolute immutability and transparent auditability of every single vote.
But wait, what about the digital divide? The author takes a really pragmatic approach here. The plan explicitly calls for establishing support centers at embassies worldwide. These embassies are going to have to play a hands-on, proactive role. They need to assist with digital literacy, help folks navigate the registration process, and even provide secure internet access for laborers who might not have reliable connections on their own. Moving into our final section, number 6, Overcoming Implementation Hurdles, the Path Forward. Now, the paper impartially acknowledges that rolling out global e-voting is not without its significant practical challenges. It's a huge undertaking, but it also provides targeted solutions to bridge that gap between theory and reality. Legally, the country needs statutory amendments to update those electoral laws we talked about earlier. Logistically, it requires a hybrid mix of those embassy voting centers and secure e-voting. Technologically, the whole solution relies heavily on biometrics, end-to-end encryption, and blockchain to guarantee trust. And sociopolitically? Well, inclusive dialogue is required to build consensus across all political parties so that absolutely everyone, regardless of affiliation, trusts the integrity of the new system.
And if you're sitting there thinking, this sounds a bit too ambitious, the paper points out comparative models to prove it can absolutely be done. Large-scale diaspora voting is already a proven reality in other major global democracies. Look at India. They've successfully codified expatriate voting rights through comprehensive legal instruments. Meanwhile, places like France and the United Kingdom have very robust, institutionalized frameworks enabling their expats to participate seamlessly. So Bangladesh wouldn't be reinventing the wheel here, they'd just be adapting proven global best practices to fit their specific needs.
Which brings us right back to the core thesis of Dr. Ilyas's research. Ensuring voting rights is therefore not only a constitutional obligation, but also a strategic step toward an inclusive democracy. That is the neutral, strategic conclusion reached by the researcher. It's ultimately about honoring constitutional commitments while simultaneously leveraging the massive potential of the diaspora for the country's overall progress. So I want to leave you with one final, provocative thought to chew on. In our globalized world, can any democracy truly claim to be representative if millions of its core economic pillars are legally silenced at the ballot box? It's a really powerful question about the future of global citizenship. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer to explore such an incredibly important topic. Keep asking questions and keep learning.